What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode with the Power of a Growth Mindset. We have to kick this episode off by saying happy Black History Month to everyone tuning in. First off, we celebrate Black History Month each and every single day. We celebrate the art, the culture, the people, you name it, we are celebrating it. And so, Mike, to kick off this episode, man, happy Black History Month to you, my brother. How are you doing?
Hey, what's up, man? Happy Black History Month, day, year, all of the above, man. As you stated, we celebrate Black History every single day. Not only like I feel like this month I'm blackety black. I'm black, but like January through December, but just like February, I'm like blackety black. And like some people may not agree, but I feel like this is a month where I don't necessarily agree with, because you give us the shortest month out of the year to celebrate my culture, the heritage and everything that falls behind us. But I take it back to I'm here. I'm taking it back to my roots, and educating people on Black History Month, and just creating that space up here on our platform, and also within my space at work, just like shining light on our culture. And I feel like we do that every single day, so I don't feel bad for saying that. I do my part as being a Black male. I do my part as being just being what my ancestors wanted me to be, wanted me to continue, which is continue to fight that we are fighting to create spaces and opportunities and injustices for people of color, Black people. And so I'm doing good, man. I hope you are doing well. I'm just excited for the future to come. So yeah.
That's real, man. And I love the energy, man, because it is a special month, but at the same time, man, it really like you were kind of hinting at before, it really isn't, because it's something that we as a people, we as a culture, we celebrate ourselves each and every day.
Right.
And so, I know we've kind of chatted and we've talked through this quite a few times, but a few minutes ago, you just mentioned this month kind of, I don't want to say rubs you a wrong way, because again, we love celebrating us, but let's talk, let's have a little bit of a conversation around that, because I think it's important to dive a little deeper into that. Well, first off, before we dive into it, I think
so we ain't gonna do the check-in, man.
That's what I'm saying. We got to do the check-in.
Okay.
That's why I took a step back.
Man. Come on,
got to be consistent, man. So I have to ask you, it's been, we've launched the first episode of this year, and we've already gone through the saying of SSG, small steps
equals growth all day long.
I'm curious how you have implemented that in your day-to-day life, because I know we've had people come back to us and say, man, we love the acronym, or hey, I've done X, Y, and Z. So I'm curious to how you in particular have kicked off this acronym in your day-to-day life.
Hey man, SSG, small steps equals growth. It's a beautiful blessing. One, to be able to hear other people say that and know that me and you, we had something to do with that, this platform. And then people just reach out like, hey, like one of my clients, they reached out to me, and they were just like, I just want to say thank you so much, that I applied that to my life. And I know I will be able to show some progress and get somewhere and like meet my goals. But answering your question directly, Gandy, I think for me, I know for me, is being intentional, man. Learning to say no. That's one of my biggest, hardest things that I struggle with. I want to be everything for everybody until it's time for somebody to be something for me. So it's just like applying that pressure, applying that same energy that I'm giving out, and applying it to my lifestyle. So I take it back to looking at my position as a counselor, new to the game, man, and looking at education through a deeper lens. Is so much it's the complexity of the position and working for a district where I serve as the only Black male counselor and the only male counselor. There's a lot of pressure, I feel like, that comes with that position that a lot of people don't necessarily really understand. But understanding that in order for me to get to where I guess like everyone is, where they're at the level of proficient, I have to take those small steps. And looking back at, we talked about this, establishing goals. For me, I really didn't share a lot of my goals then because I'm an individual who, it takes time to put that out there in the ether.
Yeah.
But looking at one of my goals, it was to become more proficient in my area that I currently reside in. And, I made a goal for the last month where it was to build in more time to be available for students.
Mm-hmm.
And that may sound like cliche because I work for students, I work in education, but oftentimes in my position, you get so caught up in paperwork to the point the people who you are there to serve, you cannot serve. And,
Right.
just like any other jobs, just over broke, FYI, just like any job, man, like there's a lot of things that come with them that you don't necessarily ask for, but you have to find a way to find a balance.
Right.
And I think for me, applying SSG was allowing myself some grace, being intentional, and just showing up for the people who I love, which are the kids. And though they get on, they get on my nerves sometimes. God knows, Jesus Christ, which is natural. But I love them dearly. I really do, and I love what I do. And yeah. So, how about yourself, man?
Man, it's crazy. I feel like the last few weeks on my end have been very, very work focused.
Uh-huh.
And I think as I start thinking about SSG, the small things, right, from my goal list this year, being more consistent in training. So I got me a coach and I started to lose weight, which was something that was very important to me
Hey, let's
as I was
go.
going into this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when we start thinking about being more consistent in reading, I've
Mm-hmm.
already read 3 books, so I'm on it.
Hey,
But
hey, you don't have to call me out like that, man. Hey, look, hey, I'm not at 3, but I just started book number 2, and me and a friend of mine, we are reading this together. So
yeah,
I'm super excited about this journey for February.
there you
I
go.
think it's going to help create a opportunity for myself and her to be able to, uh, come together a little more.
I like it. I like it. I like it. That's dope, man. Well, I will say you got one done, and I know you're holding yourself to doing at least once a month. So
Mm-hmm.
so you're well on your way to achieving that goal. But yeah, I've got the books down, but I think more importantly, and I know we talked about this a few days ago, but I've reached a milestone in my career. I'm going to be starting, I'm kind of moving up a little bit in the org,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of those things where um as I start thinking about the small steps equals growth, I'm happy about being promoted and moving to the next role. But I think as I take that step back, it's one of those things where, and me, man, we celebrate, but I'm already thinking about what's next.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where I'm thinking about what do I want out of my career, being intentional, in terms of what I want to accomplish, who I want to bring up with me. But more
Mm-hmm.
importantly, as we were talking last week, I had the opportunity to speak on a diversity panel and talk about, what are concerns, what are things that folks who have a passion for diversity, equity, inclusion, what do they need to be looking for?
Mm-hmm.
And as we start thinking about how we can play a role when it comes to recruiting folks from underrepresented groups, how do we start thinking about retainment? How do we start thinking about how we can continue to promote that in our day-to-day lives to, of course, make the work culture to be more inclusive?
Mm-hmm.
Those are all things that I'm thinking through as I'm starting to move to this next role and this next level and next step in my career.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm super excited and I'm elated in terms of where I'm at right now. I think
Mm-hmm.
this is huge because it's one of those things where, and this is going back to small steps equals growth. This was being promoted to a manager. Um, for me, I haven't seen a lot of folks that look like me and you in leadership roles. I haven't seen a lot of folks like me and you get to levels like this. And by no means am I at the top of the food chain, because I'm not. But it's one of those things where I start thinking about, dang, like, how am I going to pave it forward? Now I'm in a position where I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yo, like, I'm gonna do the thing, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that. So happy where I'm at, but I think to answer your question on how I've been incorporating it, like I said, these last few weeks have been very work heavy, but now I'm starting to think through like, okay, what's the impact that I'm going to make in the next 10 months? What's the impact that I'm going to make in the next 2 to 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? And so I'm writing down those goals and trying to figure out how I can be intentional, just like you, in terms of how I spend my energy and how I continue to move forward. So that was a long-winded answer to your response, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah. So we ain't about to move forward. Like you just didn't make a big announcement, man. Like I like how you just ease that on in there. So
I'm humble, man. I'm humble.
Hey, but celebrate, bro. Like,
Yeah.
100 years ago, that would not have been possible for a Black man. Like we got to make that acknowledgement. And so while I like how you try to be humble about making that announcement, but congratulations.
I appreciate
congratulations.
You. I appreciate
you.
you.
We are going to celebrate you, man. Like that is something that's celebratory, man. Like that's something that you have to celebrate because that is an accomplishment, a milestone, an achievement that oftentimes a lot of Black men are not able to accomplish in that particular space that you're currently working in. So congratulations, man. With that, I'm not for sure if you're ready to talk about it, but I'm open and curious to know. Like, I love the work that you're doing, which kind of mirrors the stuff that I do in education along. Sure. But I wonder how what you're doing now will impact other people moving forward.
Yeah. So, it's at least in this role. So the promotion was from, I was a senior analyst. Now I'm being promoted as a manager on our team.
Oh yeah, let's make them. Let's shout this out to my boy. He stepped up from making PowerPoints, spreadsheets to being a manager, bro. like yo,
man, I wasn't just making. Okay, I was doing PowerPoints back in the day. Now I'm back on the data thing, and now I'm still on the data wave. Like, come on now, we're not gonna come for me.
Hey, homie was making PowerPoints, bro.
Come on, man. Come on.
But you were making good money making PowerPoints, man. But so, hey, I'm here for it, bro.
Come on, man. We're not going to just come for me like
that. I'm just here to celebrate you, fam.
Like, I got you.
Hey, it's a blessing.
Hey, but I going and if you don't mind, repeat your question real quick, because I know we went from roasting me a little bit to
bro, that wasn't a roast. That's what we fam, bro. That's what we do.
That's real, man.
But the question was how what you're currently doing with the diversity initiatives and creating opportunity for other people who look like you. How will you be able to continue that in the current role that you were just recently promoted to?
So I one of the benefits and one of the things that I really appreciated about my team, especially over the last 2 years, is we try to incorporate equality day to day, week to week in what we're doing. And so, we've had the opportunity to develop processes to ensure that there's no bias in our interview process for our team in particular. We've stood up different processes to ensure that we're incorporating equality bites, having conversations around things that are going on in our community, ensuring that folks have an opportunity to go join some of our equality groups or get tapped into some of our equality groups, whether that's giving back to our community, being a mentor, serving as a sponsor to somebody within the company. Like, these are all things that we've been working through on my team in particular. As you know, I'm a part of one of our Black professional groups at Salesforce. And with that, it's on my team. We're working hand in hand in terms of how do we continue to develop the folks that we currently have. One of the things that a lot of folks in the industry are struggling with, and it's not just at Salesforce, is how do we retain our talent, especially how do we retain our Black talent? Yes. And so when we think about how we as a group, as a collective, are going to make an impact at Salesforce, it's what are we doing to ensure that folks have a mentor or a sponsor? What are we doing to ensure that we're putting professional development incorporated into our day-to-day, whether it could be on financial literacy. It could be how do you up your game in terms of how to make a sale at Salesforce, public speaking, like, can we get involved with conferences? Like, these are things that we're actively planning and incorporating into what we're doing inside of our community to ensure that our people are taken care of, they're growing, and of course are paving it forward. So there's still a lot that is being built out from the team. I know we're doing a lot of planning over these next few weeks, but at the end of the day, our end goal is to ensure that we're uplifting our community. Of course, educating folks, our allies, because one of the things, and I think you know this, just being in the school system, is yes, we want to make change, but it's a collective effort. And so what we're
The
always
village.
thinking through, exactly. And so it's like, okay, how do we get our allies involved? How do we get our Black members involved? How do we continue to ensure that everybody's on the same page so we can continue to move the needle forward?
Right.
And so that is the top priority, I think, for us as we start planning and moving forward this year. And it's something that I'm excited to be a part of, because I only play a small role. But at the end of the day, yeah, man, it's making an impact. That's the biggest thing.
That's good, man. It's all of, I like how you didn't directly say breaking barriers, but in a sense, breaking barriers for potential people that are looking for an opportunity to be a part of Salesforce. So I really like that, because believe it or not, retention in 2022 is looking pretty bad right now.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking for my profession, and also other professions as well. Is looking pretty bad, and I'm sure there's data that actually supports that cause. And there's a lot of reasons as to why people are not staying on their jobs. And I'm telling you right now, our generation, millennials, and the generation after us, before we get stressed out, we will leave a job. We will leave a job.
That's real.
And because we know the value that we bring to the table. We know a lot of things that well, we think we know. I put it like, some of us, we think we know what we can do and what we can't do, and how we know that if we leave this job today, there will be another opportunity for us somewhere else lined up.
100%.
So I really do appreciate the work that you do for your organization to help break barriers for our people and other people that's not part of the culture and or community. So I really do appreciate that.
Oh, for sure, man. We trying to do stuff outside the community too, because I know both of
That's
us
important.
mentor. I know both of us mentor.
Right.
I mentor my brother, who is younger than me. I mentor people outside of Salesforce.
Right.
I mentor folks who are going through, whether it's high school or college.
Right.
It's the biggest thing, and I know it's something that we're passionate about, is ensuring that when, I'll say this, at the end of the day, we're trying to leave our mark. And we know that in the roles that we're in, we know that in the environments that we're in, there's not many people like us. But hopefully, when we accomplish what we accomplish, 5 or 10 years down the road versus one, there's 5. And then 10 years down the road, and I'm not saying hopefully it's not that slow, but the point being is that we're bringing more people along. So that way, in the short and the long term, we're creating spaces and opportunities for those to follow after us.
That's real. That's a good thing. We need more initiatives where we are drawing focus on mentorship within communities. We need more initiatives that are talking about things that are oftentimes swept under the rug, which brings us into, it goes back to, I know for my community and my family, there's a lot of things that's swept under the rug that we don't really talk about, because we was raised not to. We were raised not to. What happens in our household stays in our household. So it goes back to like the celebration of, like, I guess that's why people like to say, let's celebrate Black history, because we overcame so much, and we got into a point where our history has now been a part of American history, but that's not the case. Our history is American history, like ever since
100%.
ever since day one. So I really appreciate that, and you mentioning that in the work that you do.
For sure, man. So you actually you brought up a good point, because we are in Black History Month, and I've heard, obviously we've said it, but for the folks, when you say our history is part of American history, right? What do you mean by that? Because I know that there are some folks who are trying to educate themselves, who are trying to learn. We know what it means, but let's dive a little bit on that topic.
Our history is our history is American history because, for one, we were brought here. We are part of the history without even not without even highlighting all the other things before here, the stealing of the indigenous people's land and all those other things. We were brought here. We are part of the history of America. Granted, it has not been a part of American history in the education system, and a lot of people don't want it to be. And a lot of people think just celebrating within 28 or 29 days is enough. That is not the case. That's why I said from day one, Black history has always been American history.
Before we did the check-in, you had mentioned that, and we said in the beginning of the call or beginning of this show, Black history needs to be celebrated 365. It's not just 28 days, 29 days, if you want to count a leap year, but Black history is celebrated 365. And I think it goes back to exactly what you were saying when it comes to when you look at our history is intertwined with everything that has been built on this country, from food to art to culture to music to you name it, we're in it.
And it started way long before 1976 when it was named Black History Month. Our history was dated way before then. Right.
That's facts.
Proceed.
So I'm curious, man, in your perspective, what do we need to do to keep the conversation going? Because I think for us, and I only say this because being in the work environment, even growing up in school, you'll see a photo of Martin Luther King. You may see another person who is very influential in Black history. We talk about it for a day or 2 days, and it's like, all right, like we've checked the box and move forward. But like we know that person's life, the culture, it didn't just end on when we talked about it on February 15th. So I guess from your perspective, like, how do we keep the conversation going? Because it doesn't just end during this month.
I think we have to know where we came from. That's why we have historians. That's why we have people. That's why we have the internet. That's why we have opportunities to collaborate and communicate with other people. You have to look beyond what you see today and kind of go back and fetch what was lost along the way. For me, when I look at Black history, yes, it's about art, it's about culture, it's about all these things. But at the same time, you can be Black history and not know history.
Expand upon that real quick. What do you mean by
that? So you can be Black history and not know history. Just certain things within there's levels to it. And so you have some people that know everything under the sun about Black history, from enslavement to today, where we're not necessarily enslaved. However, we have systems in place in a sense that promote and perpetuate slavery. So when I say you can be Black and not know history, is Drake said it best, you could be standing in the field, but you're not really in the field. And it's just like, you can be here, but not really know what's really going on.
Right.
And you have to go back. It kind of like, I think the Sankofa story that Mama Thorpe used to share at NC State, like going back and just like fetching what was lost, but at the same time, understanding where you have came, what has been before you, and understand where we need to go. Because sometimes, history in a sense does repeat itself, and we can prevent a lot of things if we knew what has already happened before, if we engage in like reading, if we engage in for me, is speaking with your elders, man. Like for my grandmother, she was around for certain time periods, and I engage in conversations with her that helps me to understand the local history of my community and how different things look back then versus how they look now, and why a lot of our stuff when it comes to businesses are not what they used to be. Just understanding like history in itself helps you understand Black history and understand just because you read it in a textbook, don't make it right. Because it's just like some people do research, and how they came up with their method and how they came up with their result depends on who they studied, where they studied that population of people, and the instruments that they use to come up with that particular result and solution that they came up with. So for me to be able to answer your question, man, it's just like knowing just beyond Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks. Also, when I think about that, and here's an example, I was speaking with some of my kids, and I was talking about Emmett Till, and they didn't know anything about Emmett Till. I even dated back to local history, and they was just like, what? This happened? And it's just like we're so caught up into media and what's going on today that we forget, and we have forgotten a lot of things that has transpired before we were here, but also is transpiring while we are here currently. And so it's going back to the sense that a lot of people said, like, this is crazy, the world is just crazy. And I'm just like, but this happened before. Like this is history, man. Like this is the same thing, but it just got a suit on it. Like people are just a little bit more professional. And this is slavery in a sense. And so it kills me to hear like, oh, I'm free and I'm this and I'm this. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I think to your point, nowadays everything is recorded, right? Now, like in the past, something happens and it's just like, well, but now it is, well, we've got recordings, we've got video cameras, and hopefully we've got people who are willing to step up and say like, yo, like this is what has happened, or this injustice has happened, like something needs to be done. But as you were saying, like history has repeated itself and it continues to repeat itself. What our parents have went through, what our parents' parents have went through, what our great grandparents have went through, it's still the same thing. And as you said, just different form, different time.
Right. And so when I look at that, how, we have, in a sense, yes, progressed a lot from back then to current and to now, whatever. But there's still so much work to be done, because while Black culture it's a beautiful thing, but at the same time, we have to do our part as a Black culture to make sure our history, our legacies of our individual families is talked about, learned, so that we can be better human beings, and we are doing things not because Sally Sue or Pookie said this is what needs to happen, but we're doing things because we know for a fact, we have researched it, we have learned about it, we have read about it, we have engaged in conversations with other people and talked about it, and we are about it. And so a lot of people, like I think I read a post the other day that said, y'all keep doing this or whatever, I'm not my ancestor. And not all of our ancestors stood there and took beatings. Like, people fought back. But like I said, it's just the beauty of a cell phone can capture it all. And that's kind of like the difference between now and then. Like, and so when I look at, I try to be mindful of the words I use, like people say, yeah, Black people were in slavery. I'm like, no, they were kings and queens. They were enslaved. They were not slaves. They were enslaved. and try to help them understand that, like, and I'm kind of like me, how I'm showing up in communities and how I'm trying to practice what I preach, and also what I've learned is correcting people, and but also challenging what I believe and how I believe and why I believe, because that's important in order to be Black history.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this, man, in the spirit of it being Black history and everything that you just talked about, I'm curious from your perspective. What is it? I'll say this, because I don't want to say what does Black history mean to you, but what does it mean? Like, what does being Black mean to you? What does it mean to you?
Being Black in America is scary as hell.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it means to me. And I break it down by saying this. Being Black, it means to me being great, being loved, being supportive, being creative, but also putting you in your damn place. And it's not just about the color of my skin that makes me who I am. It's the experiences that makes me who I am and why I do what I do. Why I do what I do. Yeah. And so when I think of your question, it's kind of like, what does it mean to be Black? And yes, being Black in America is hard. It's scary sometimes because there's that beautiful side of it, like that intellectual, I'm a king, I can do anything, all things, as long as I put my mind to it, my mind at work, and I can accomplish that goal. That's the beauty side.
Right.
But then the reality side is scary. So the question is, what does being Black mean? And what does it mean to you?
Being Black is scary, but there's just something special about it, man. There's something special about it.
Damn swag, right? Yeah.
No, man. It's Black is love. Black is resilience. Black is beautiful from
Black is
all shades of
excellence.
from all shades of the spectrum. Black is excellence.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned in the episode earlier, man. There's not many of us in our positions.
Mm-hmm.
There's not many of us in the industries that we are in.
Mm-hmm.
But we're paving it forward. And that's part of the Black experience. And it's tough. I know it's as hard as it is, but as we always say, God gives his biggest challenges to his strongest soldiers.
That is true. That is true. And while I do agree, I still challenge that, because
Yes,
the
please
question
do.
still arises. Why do it always have to be us? Why do we have to be the ones to explain? Why do we have to be the one to go out of our way to give back? Why do we have to be the ones?
Mm-hmm.
And going back to Black is tiring, that is why.
Yeah.
Because we deserve every single thing in this world when it comes to excellence, because that's who we are.
I'm reflecting, man. It's one of those things where I'm sorry for the pause, but
no, the pauses are good.
It's for me, it is, I'm proud.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud. And to your point, it's tough. It's hard to have to continuously explain and educate. But as I mentioned before, man, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like our community, our experiences, where we come from, how we're moving forward. Like for me, there's a sense of hope. There's a sense of always a continuously feeling of resilience. But at the end of the day, man, for us, I know we're not where we want to be. We've moved the needle forward, but there is hope. For me, I'm optimistic, and I've always been optimistic. And as we reflect on where we're at, especially, and I'm not going to say just this month, but as we reflect at where we're going outside of just these 28 days, you know, there's hope. We've seen that in the protest that took place about a year and a half ago. And it wasn't just old people. We saw young people, we saw allies, we saw people from all walks of life. But there's hope for the next generation.
And thank you for sharing that, man. I think for me, when it comes to hope, is work. Because for some people don't have hope. And when I look at it, when I look at the prison systems and how I see myself as, I think I'm privileged enough to see where I'm positioned and the work that I have to continue to do, with understanding that, like you said, paving it forward, yes. But work is going to get us there. Because a lot of people, hope has been robbed. Mike Brown's mom, a lot of them. How can I find hope? And my son was just killed. George Floyd, his daughter. A lot of people. And while I'm optimistic about the future, I will not and I will never dismiss the present, and understanding that there's a lot of work we have to do, even within our own culture. Because protesting is good, but we got to hold them accountable.
Right.
An example, next election, what's going on currently within our political system. Everybody was on Joe bandwagon. I see very few, but a good amount of people speaking out for accountability. It's beyond, for me, it's moving beyond hope, because hope is a word, but we need action.
Right.
Which brings me to this last question. How can other people outside of us continue to support and or begin to support initiatives that are helping to break barriers for Black people? That's question one. And question two, how can we educate generations behind us on Black history outside of the school? Because the school is a place where people go to learn, yes. But how can we restore communities? How can we restore broken communities? For some people, you know, we talk about health disparities within the Black community. And For some people, all they know are Little Debbie's, fruit juices, and bags of chips. And when you look at inner city, and not everything about inner city is bad, but when you look at certain inner cities and certain rural, that's all they know.
Mhm.
How do we go up against that to be able to help them understand Black is beautiful, Black is love, Black is excellence? Because all of that is true.
Mhm.
But if you don't have hope, how can you know that?
That's fair. So I think to answer, I'll start with the first question.
Right.
What can we do to and let me know if I'm off, but essentially it is how do we create opportunities and eliminate barriers to give Black people an opportunity to get into certain positions, fields, hell, just opportunities in general.
Not necessarily. How can we help eliminate barriers that are
Yeah.
set before
Yeah.
Black people?
I and we've talked about this multiple times.
And
But
not
I
looking at,
think
and I'm not. I don't think I'm. Well, I'm not. I'm not looking at a particular organization, but I'm just saying in general. Like, how can we, as a collective
mm-hmm.
and or platform, do that?
So I think from a collective, I think it starts on where you're at now. Not all of us are in positions of leadership. Not all of us are in positions to I'll leave it. Not everybody's in a position of leadership. And typically what we see is the folks who are at the top or the folks who are in these positions have the final say. And of course, that final say trickles down and has an impact on the community. But think about it like this, Mike. Think about it like this. Whether you are a teacher, whether you are an employee at a company, whether you work for a nonprofit, it's the little things. If you're hiring someone and you have the opportunity to give or voice your opinion on who you're going to be hiring next, be intentional. Hey, we may go recruit from an HBCU. Hey, whoever the recruiters are, we're constantly hiring from this specific group of people. And I'm not saying go tokenize, because I know that you have certain qualifications that you have to meet for a job, but how do you create those opportunities? Be intentional in your hiring process, where you recruit, how you recruit, what types of candidates you're sourcing. And this isn't just from a company. This is from your school system. This is from how you volunteer. What opportunities are you volunteering at? You can volunteer at the soup kitchen, but have you given a chance to go mentor a student, to sponsor a student? It's the little things that you can do to step in and make an immediate impact. And that's not saying that you're in leadership. Can you spend an hour on a Friday going and speaking to a young student who's got an interest in wanting to be an engineer or a scientist or a doctor? Go mentor them, go talk to them, let them know what you're doing day in and day out. Let them shadow you for a day, right? Then there's the other things, how you volunteer your time or how you donate money. If you don't want to go and have an immediate impact, you can always make donations. There are organizations constantly asking for money to give back to the community, provide books or funding to students, giving them opportunities to go do X, Y, and Z. So it's the little things that you can do immediately to help provide opportunities for folks in these spaces. To answer your second question, and if you don't mind repeating it, because I don't want to veer off, but it was, if you don't mind repeating it.
I forgot the question, but I think what you said, what you said is extremely powerful, and that's what I was trying to give our audience.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of just talked about it earlier. A lot of people are not really in tune about Black history, why it was started, why it was founded.
Right.
A lot of people are not in tune about Black history in general, and for whatever reason, whatever reason. But it was more so we all have a part.
Right.
We all can do something, and I wanted to help. I I wanted someone, either you or myself, highlight some ideas or some things that can be done. And while the list goes on, and it depends on the individual, what's priority on your list.
Right. Ooh, wait. We're not just gonna pivot off of that real quick.
Because no, go ahead.
No, I want to say, like you said, it's a priority. And what I always say is people make time for the things that are important to them, that are most important to them. And if you want change, if you want to uplift those around you, you have to be intentional on how you use your time, how you use your collective efforts, whether it's volunteering, whether it is giving back to your community, making time or space to talk about equality at your job, something.
Mm-hmm.
Because in order to move the needle forward, people have to make this a priority.
And why I said that a lot of folks' priority are not in the same place, is because our experiences. We talked about white privilege earlier, and with the conversation that I had with one of my colleagues that about white privilege and what she thought of it, and it was just like she didn't understand how, because she was the minority, that yes, she had the opportunity to benefit from different systems that were in place that was considered unearned privileges, but she didn't understand that the difference between white privilege and unearned privilege and privilege in general. And so it goes back to that thing is, if you don't know nothing about it, look into it, be inquisitive, challenge yourself, because we always say, well, you know what, next year I'm gonna have my company to do this, and that may be fine, that may work, but why wait till next year?
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Martin Luther King, he left us with a quote: that time is always right to do what is right.
Mm-hmm.
So why wait and focus on next year when you could focus on today?
Do it now. Start now. Begin now. And I think
Hey,
that's the thing, man. I think it's one of those things where, and this is going back to what we discussed with SSG a couple weeks ago,
all right.
right? You have to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It can begin with just picking up a book. It can be with a small donation. It can be, hey, we're going to figure out how we're going to incorporate this conversation in our day-to-day job. Maybe we'll do a diversity training. Maybe we'll go and sponsor a student. I don't know what that looks like. It's going to be different for everyone. But starting somewhere helps move the needle forward. That's where the change really happens. I think we tend to get bottled up with, well, we need to wait for the folks at the top to sign a bill or write on a piece of paper.
You be waiting
That's
for
You're gonna
years.
be waiting for years.
Yeah, right.
And
And that's not
so
the priority. That's not.
no, and I think what people need to realize is we have more power than we think. Yeah, you can. How you vote makes a big determining factor. Have you shown up to your local town hall to see what in the world is going on in my community?
Mm-hmm.
It's the little things that you can do to really make the biggest impact. It's not just starting with the folks who are at the top. And so I know we always encourage each other to do the little things to help move the needle, but I'm sitting here right now and I'm talking to our audience right now. It's the little things. Be intentional, make it a priority. If this is something that you want to incorporate in your day-to-day, do that. But I say all this, man. I say all this to bring it all the way back around to say, man, although we have a lot going on as a community, while we know that the needle needs to continue to be pushed and changes need to happen, I'm gonna just say, man, it's great. Of course, I know we're gonna be celebrating during the this month, but dang, we're gonna celebrate 365 because the truth is, as we had talked about in the episode, Black is love, Black is community, Black is king, Black is excitement, joy, Black is beautiful. There's so many things to describe us as a people. There's so many things to describe the community, the culture. But man, it's a beautiful thing, and every day it's a joy to be Black. I'm gonna say that, man, because I love me, I love you, I love our people. It's just, it is what it is, and we're gonna continue to push forward because that's who we are. We are resilient, we're motivated, we're driven, we're passionate, we're excellent. There's so many adjectives we can use to describe Black, man, but it's wonderful.
Wonderful it is. And Black history, and we leave y'all, our audience, on this note. Black history is more than a month. Let's make a conscious effort and be intentional about developing the mindset to be able to understand what is Black history. Why is it just a month in America? In some countries, it's not celebrated in February. It's in October in Canada, I believe, and it's in another month in another country. So let's be intentional. Let's make a conscious effort to be able to understand where we are currently and how can we help our communities, or how can we even join a community to be able to move the needle. I'm very proud to be Black, but Black is not all that I am. I'm much more. Mm-hmm. It's the power of a growth mindset, and it all starts with you.